What's going on, guys? Dove here. In this video, I'll be going over my review of Tears of the Kingdom, also known as ADHD Stimulator 2023, also known as The Legend of Zelda Nuts and Bolts. Sometime after the events of Breath of the Wild, Zelda and Link go into the depths beneath Hyrule Castle to discover the source of the gloom that has been making residents of the castle sick. They eventually come across a mummified Ganondorf with a mysterious arm sticking out of his chest. Ganondorf awakens and causes an event known as the Upheaval, lifting pieces of Hyrule into the sky, destroying the Master Sword and Link's arm. Zelda falls into the chasm, and Link gets saved by the mysterious arm. Link awakens to be met by the spirit of a goat man named Rauru, who takes us through the tutorial section of the game that is located on a giant floating island. If I had a nickel for every time a kind goat person guided me through the opening tutorial segment of an RPG, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Link now has to locate Zelda, who calls out to him from, well, somewhere. And it's back down to Hyrule, cleaning up a bunch of messes and solving other people's problems. Oh, and also the lore is a gigantic mess now, but I'm not going to dive into the lore right now because they will be here forever. I'm not doing that today. No. Like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom takes place in a sprawling Hyrule overworld, in addition to the newly added sky and underground depths. The islands littered across Hyrule's sky contain many puzzles and secrets, along with breathtaking views of Hyrule. The depths are, well... Oh shit. Oh shit. Help. Ah! Ah! Did you just lift him? Oh my god, he just yeeted him! What the hell? Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oops. Well, that was nightmare fuel. Much of the combat from Breath of the Wild returns, but with many improvements. Link has new abilities such as Ultra Hand, an improved version of Breath of the Wild's Magnesis, and allows you to grab many different objects and fuse them together in order to solve puzzles or wreak havoc. This is probably one of the game's best features simply due to the insane creative potential that it enables. The Fuse ability, which takes the somewhat disliked weapon system from Breath of the Wild, and makes it fun by allowing you to fuse weapons with items or other weapons for that extra wombo combo. The Ascend ability, which allows Link to phase through walls and solid objects directly above him. This is good for reaching higher ground, solving puzzles, and, I don't really know. I didn't really use it that often. The Rewind ability, which allows Link to send objects back in time. This can be used on falling blocks from the sky to get up higher in the air, or it can be used to send projectiles back to sender. Things like Cryosis and Stasis don't make a return, but this allows you to tackle Hyrule from a new perspective. There are also several UI and UX improvements, such as the ability to quick select items to throw, being able to drop unwanted items when finding new equipment in a chest, and more. The shrines in this game follow a similar style to the shrines in Breath of the Wild, in which they are short little trials that test your knowledge and skills with your abilities to solve puzzles and reward you with resources for health and stamina upgrades. These can range from super easy to where the hell are my brain cells? Then there are the temple dungeons. This is where one of my gripes with Tears of the Kingdom comes into play. Yes, while the various temple dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom definitely feel better than the underwhelming Divine Beast dungeons in Breath of the Wild, many of these are still a far cry from previous Zelda dungeons where you need to explore by searching for keys and doing more elaborate puzzles. Most of these are more or less the same thing. Take a trek to the temple with a new party member, learn to use their power, get to the temple, main mechanism is dysfunctional. Go and activate the 5 smaller mechanisms to activate the main mechanism and fight the dungeon boss. I'll admit that from a game design perspective, it does serve as a good way to familiarize yourself with the powers of the sages, but that charm wears down very quickly. Plus, the only one that I actively ended up using the most was the Wind Sage power to go further while gliding. All in all, the temple dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom aren't necessarily bad, they're just not very good, and they're fairly repetitive. Oh yes, and the Koroks. How could we not discuss the Koroks? Returning from Breath of the Wild are the Korok puzzles. Finding and or helping these little wooden fellas will reward you with Korok seeds, which will allow you to upgrade your weapon capacity. However, in this game, they made a new kind of Korok puzzle where you have to bring a backpacking Korok from point A to point B using whatever you have at your disposal. And of course, many people, myself included, decided that it would be hilariously evil to torture these poor little dudes for their tedious tasks. Crucify them, launch them into space, roast them on an open fire, the sky is the limit. This game is full of side quests, many of which yield worthwhile rewards, and while most of these aren't mandatory, they do expand the game and world drastically. I have yet to finish all of them. That's pretty much what I have with most of the game now. So, yeah, there's a lot of those. And then, of course, there's the matter of graphics. This isn't so much an issue with the game itself, but more about the hardware that it's on. Yes, Tears of the Kingdom does share Breath of the Wild's visual style and still looks gorgeous with that mix of realism and anime cel shading. But the fact that this game could have looked even better had Nintendo just released a more powerful console like the Switch 2 or something by this point would have been the icing on the cake. So now, instead of a glorious cupcake, we're left with a very tasty muffin. This game pushes the Switch to its limits without breaking anything, but I cannot stress this enough. This game deserves to run at 60 frames per second 4K while docked. The usual chilled-out soundtrack still plays in Hyrule's overworld, with more expansive themes playing during battles and cutscenes. Boss themes get the mood going and definitely get you hyped, and they're some of the best compositions within the game itself. The settlements throughout Hyrule play eerie versions of the regular music when you first end up there, due to the ongoing bad stuff happening in that area, like the blizzard in the Rito village or the raining sludge in Zora's domain. This really sets the mood for things have gone to shit, and really fits the ambiance that the environment is presenting. Once you solve the ongoing local crisis, the music goes back to its usual chill vibes. And while this game does have voice acting, I feel like it needs a little more. Like, at least for the important characters. This is yet another problem I have with Tears of the Kingdom. Why are the story cutscenes constantly split between fully voiced cutscenes and text-based dialogue slog? Why not just make all important story characters have full voice acting during important story events? I don't expect them to give full voice acting to random NPCs and whatnot, but the voice acting inconsistencies are honestly ridiculous. Hilariously enough, I'd gladly take the voice acting in this game as it is if it were applied to another big Nintendo game that is missing voice acting as a whole. Tears of the Kingdom is yet another fantastic Zelda game and a must-play for anyone that enjoyed Breath of the Wild. The land of Hyrule is still full of wonders to explore and secrets to uncover, and also lots of crazy stuff to build.